right, guys, so we're getting things set up and letting everybody in the Zoom right now. So if everybody just wants to hang tight for just a second, we'll get this party started here in just a minute. All right. Okay, I think we've got everybody in here for right now. So let's go ahead and get things started here, and then we can let everybody else kind of join in as they show up. So first off, thanks everybody for showing up today. This is the first time we've done a virtual wine tasting event before. So would love to, once we're done here, if you guys have any feedback, would love feedback. We want to know if you guys enjoyed it. If you did, we're going to do a lot more of these in the future. And we expect this to be a ton of fun. The idea today is really simple. So we're going to keep this really casual, and we want to try to keep this engaging if we can. If you guys feel comfortable engaging and asking questions, along the way, we encourage you to do so, either, typing the comments in Zoom or, just go ahead and sort of speaking up. We're not sort of muting anybody. The idea is we're going to have probably 20, maybe 30 or so people kind of showing up today. And so we're trying to keep this a very, very small group versus some, big, massive, presentation. And the idea today is it's really not really a presentation. What we want to do is make this more of a fun wine tasting event. And what we're going to do is just sort of intersperse between those wine tastings, a few very quick kind of high level, but also very specific tips on how you can improve and what you can do to prepare your stores for the holidays. So we've got 3 different blocks that we're going to talk about very specifically on how to improve conversions, how to improve revenue on the store, for prepping for the holidays. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about each of those topics in between the wine tastings. The event today is being brought to you by Blue Stout, Gorgias, Shopify, and Recharge. So we're going to give everybody a little opportunity to talk during the event today. But the primary purpose and the primary event is to talk about wine. And so we've got my good friend here, Kevin, and Kevin is a sommelier, also an entrepreneur and a Shopify merchant. He's a merchant first and foremost. He's really leading the charge in terms of rethinking the way that the wine world should operate. And he's taken a very digital first approach. And a major piece of that is selling online and using Shopify to do it. So I thought there was literally no better person to run the event today and actually walk us through these wines than Kevin. Kevin's superpower, in my opinion, is finding these incredibly small, often overlooked or maybe forgotten producers that are just producing these phenomenal wines around the world and bringing them to light and distributing them through his brand at Hart and Crew. And so what I asked Kevin to do today was just pick three wines that he thought would be a really fun way to present some things that you probably haven't had before, some brands you probably haven't seen before, and talk us through sort of the origins of them, where they come from, and talk us through a very traditional sort of sommelier wine tasting. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to turn this over to Kevin here right now and let him start to walk us through those first wines, and then I'll jump back in here as we kind of move our way in between those wines, and we'll start to walk through some holiday education.
Cool. Well, thank you, Alan, and thank you to everyone that invited me into this today. The bottles are super fun, so hopefully you guys have a glass open and I'm already tasting. I think I think most people are 3 o'clock on somewhere in the country.
We're all okay with 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock wine tastings.
But it's been a blast. The last few years have really been kind of a wild ride. I am doing wine professionally, either in the restaurant scene, big box stores, everything from importing to brokering wine. But technically about 6 years ago, we really launched Hart and Crew as we know it today. And it's been a really, really unique experience, because when we first started this movement, I really honestly thought that consumers and my clients locally wanted what I would consider a somm on demand. They wanted someone that they could text, call, have this really, really personal and kind of curated experience. But it was really fascinating because the last 3 years, I think for everyone, has been completely turned on our heads. And we, as a team, very quickly decided to flip and go very, very, very heavy e-com and digital just through the pandemic. And the data's out there, what this did, I think, nation, if not worldwide. But it was a really unique conversation for us because it's, as Alan said, we work with insanely small producers, tiny wineries, small allocations. Sometimes we only get a few cases of this sort of stuff into the state where I'm located, into Ohio. And being able to find a platform and a way to make this move quickly and efficiently and train our team in a way that was insanely user-friendly on the e-com side was pretty massive for us. We redid our website 4 times over the last 3 years, but it always kind of came back to our passion, which was telling story. So these virtual tastings, I think, are really, really fun because it allows me to tell the story of these winemakers and the grapes and the regions that you'll be tasting. But at the same point in time, it still allows us to kind of carry our brand on. I'm pretty particular about certain details of what happens within the business and the way I want our business to look, the way it reads, and I think the way it comes off to the consumer. And it's been a wild ride getting there. So the 3 wines that today you'll be tasting and kind of chatting about are real great personality traits of like who I am. I love every producer we're tasting. Some of them are dear friends. But yeah, Alan, if you want to move to the next slide, I can maybe dive into this a little bit further.
Okay, let me make sure I'm here. All right, there you go.
All right. So this is where things get really fun for me. Wine is a really unique kind of category in itself because I think it can become very, very, very intimidating very fast. Which is why it's fascinating when I start looking around at the marketplace and seeing how much content can be out there, what works, what doesn't, what brands are really being represented, because marketing is not always cheap, and it can be really daunting on the amount of execution it takes. And it's been something that I always said, if we're going to do this, it has to be around the producers that really kind of like relate and kind of hit us at a score as a company. And the 2 gentlemen in this first photo are 2 very dear friends of mine. The gentleman on the left is Lyle Railsback, and then this is his brother, Eric. And I think one of the things that really kind of sets us apart and what we really do is we always say it's producer, producer, producer. If I look at any aspect of what our business stands for and the wines that we get behind, it has to be really about the whole, and the people are really, really important. So where this kind of gets unique is Lyle, the one with the goldish glasses and the reddish hair. He was the brand ambassador for a wine export and import business called Kermit Lynch, based out of Berkeley, California. I spent about 4 weeks with Lyle in 2012 in France, and his amount of knowledge just kind of blew my mind. Over the last few years, he and his brother kind of got to this unique position where they wanted to do something next. And his brother, Eric, was a sommelier in San Francisco at a restaurant called RN74, if anyone has been there before they closed down, down in the financial district, and worked with one of my other mentors, Rajat Parr. And these 2 minds together, to me, just kind of operate at a different level in the wine industry, especially in America. And the thing that I really kind of cherish about them is through their knowledge of the past, they've kind of always honed in on kind of these iconic producers, the benchmarks, the North Stars, and always said they're going to try to do tributes to these winemakers and make wine in a style that kind of brought back that passion. So this little quote is going towards this idea of what Domaine Tempier, which is one of these iconic properties in the south of France, was doing back in the 70s. Kind of rosé, taken more seriously, but lower ABV, lower alcohol, easy to drink, refreshing. And to me, this is really, really important because, you know, wine over the last few years, sales category has skyrocketed, especially rosé. And sadly, I think there's a lot of rosé that has flooded the market, that the quality, it doesn't have the story, and it doesn't have the background into the structure of the fruits or into who the winemakers are and what they're trying to show. And the first time they released Rescales Rosé from Railsback, this crazy little bottle that hopefully you are all tasting, it really, really kind of connected with me deeply because it reminded me of these great French rosés from the south of France. The challenge is they're making this in Saint-Eliez Valley, so Santa Barbara. I was actually just there a few weeks ago, kind of visiting a few of these vineyard sites with them. And it's really, really special because to me, you have these 2 minds that are coming together in an incredible way. So when you taste this rosé, I think it's unique because hopefully you all are rosé fans and you've tasted these before. But a lot of rosés, I look at all wine as in the range of body weight. Are you looking at it light-bodied, medium-bodied, full-bodied, how much texture and richness is to it, where's the acidity or the brightness, how fruity is it, how much wood. And some of these notes we kind of call out in the print work that hopefully you all are kind of staring at or scribbling on. But I really find this rosé fascinating because, rosé has this unique place in the wine world where it's not just this go get a pool float and kind of chug a bottle over the course of the afternoon. There is a whole other side of rosé that is this like savory kind of deep rosé that has a lot more going on. And I think these rosés, when you drink them, to me, you sip them a little bit slower. I also really do believe in the mindset that wine is really meant for food, and having it around a dinner table is really, really important. And if you hit the next slide, I'll kind of show where this is coming from, which is kind of a unique thing. As we're heading down south, so this is Southern California, right above where the Recharge logo is at the very bottom, you'll see this little, very kind of faint little font in the bottom corner south of Happy Canyon called Santa Ynez Valley. And it's really amazing to me because as I kept studying wine, the more and more I started realizing something. I just saw something here on the tasting notes, but I'm reading. So they make a lot of other, so this, I'm not sure I'm following that, the Canadian, but I'll come back to that. But the Santa Ynez is really fascinating because when I started studying the geography of California, when you get to the south, Santa Barbara is wildly colder than even Sonoma and into certain parts of Napa, and especially even Oregon, which just I couldn't wrap my head around for the longest time frame. But you have this incredible coastal influence, but there's this cold water path that comes down from the glass in the Pacific, and it hits the continent at Lompoc, and this cold air floods into the region. So in the middle of summer, when I was there a few weeks ago, the highs that things were getting to were only around mid 80s, and it was really amazing to me seeing harvest going on with such cool grapes. But this rosé is really kind of inspired from that first quote of Domaine Tempier, this iconic French rosé from this family called the Perauds, and we'll show Lulu on the next page. But Santa Ynez really kind of captured some of this climate that we were finding in the south of France and the coastal influence that you have from the southern Mediterranean. So whenever I taste this rosé, because the blend is Mourvedre, Grenache, and Cinsault, which are all red grapes. So the way rosé is made is if you take these red varietals, press them quickly, allow the skins to stay in contact for just a little bit of time, you'll start pulling out some color from those red skins while the flesh is actually white. And you'll get these really unique kind of lights and rosés. But when you start taking Mourvedre, Grenache, and Cinsault, which are all fairly savory grapes, and when I say savory, whenever I drink these grape varietals, especially when they are made all the way into red wine, they go into these really kind of like wild kind of cooking herbs and savory. The French call it garrigue, which is the wild herbs that grow all over the south of France. We see it as the herbs of Provence. You sprinkle it on chicken or all sorts of stuff when you're cooking. And whenever I smell the rosés or the reds from down here, they have that like herbaceousness to them, but they also have this really unique kind of a salty character. And it was the first time when I tasted an American rosé that was made in the style of what happens in the south of France and Provence and down in Bandol, this little region, that the rosés of America started influencing me into reminding me of the south of France. And it was very much by intent. So Lyle, if you hit the next slide over, I'll show the woman that kind of inspired this wine. So there's two photos here. On the left is actually Santa Ynez Valley. So this is Santa Barbara. It is breathtakingly beautiful, slightly arid into the landscapes until you do see the vineyards with all the foliage and the leaves growing. But it's wild that the daytimes can be in that mid 80s, as I said, and then night times it drops down into the 50s. And this happens a lot throughout Europe, especially on the Mediterranean. So this wonderful old lady that you're looking at is named Lulu. We sadly lost her last year. She passed away at 102. But the woman lived a very, very good life. And I was able to meet her a few times. She was about, maybe 4'5", a complete ball of energy. But every time she was cooking, she always had wine in her hand. She never knew what she was going to make for dinner until the day she went to the market, and she would decide that day. But when you're give or take a mile to 2 miles at the Mediterranean coast. It turned into cooking whole fish all the time. And it turned into this like incredible way of this lifestyle that she really kind of embraced and just loved, which was what kind of grows together and goes together. And it's this kind of conversation around these wines that are meant for the south of France, these grape varietals that do very, very well there, and kind of the local food and the cuisine of what's going down there. So it's olives, all the same herbs that we're talking about, fennel, citrus zest. You're always cooking with olive oil, never butter, slow roasted or put in high fire, but you get these incredible flavors. So this is a really kind of special rosé. I hope you guys all like it. I think it's pretty delicious.
Yeah, I just got back from a beach vacation last week, and we brought multiple bottles of this. And ate a lot of fish. It was awesome.
Yeah,
so it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, and it does really well with us here in the store. It's really fascinating because I really do believe one of the kind of secrets of what the Railsback brothers have done is they really have taken an incredible story around a place and a person in kind of an honor to her and to this tribute to Lulu, who has her own cookbooks out and the whole works. New York Times did a massive article on her when she passed away. But it's kind of a beautiful thing when you're giving a tribute to these kind of icons in some sort of industry. And this rosé, I think New York Times, I think it was last week, it was in the last few weeks, ended up putting this in like one of their top 10 rosés of the world. And it's crazy because we don't get a ton of it. They're not making a ton. So these wines, they come in once a year, we grab what we can, and then they're gone until the next release. So on a business side, on a retailer side, it's always a little bit tricky because we put all this energy into building the brand and telling the story locally about these, and we maybe have them for 2 months and then they're sold out for the rest of the year, which is always a little bit unique.
Yeah, well, I'm a fan. So what I'd say is everybody top your glass off, and what we'll do is we'll dive in here into a couple. Well, actually, I'd love to see there's some comments here from Jenny. So the rosé is lovely. I love the tribute and the name to Lulu. Yeah, it's very cool. Anybody else have any? So I guess before we move on, does anybody have any questions about this to Kevin before we kind of move on to the next section here? And honestly, feel free to just shout them out if you guys want to chat. The idea is we want to keep this super, super casual. If not, also totally fine, and we can kind of keep moving.
So Lulu, the question there is, what part of France did Lulu live? So she was down in the very southern part of Provence. There's a little fishing village called Bandol. Cassis is just next to it. So you're kind of between Nice and Marseille, up into these crazy hills that were kind of formed from when the Alps got pushed up and the southern part of France kind of separated away from what we now know as, kind of a North Africa when the Mediterranean was formed. It was really, really crazy. The soil structure is wild there, but it was her husband that really, really fought to get her village recognized for the world-class wine that they were doing. Her rosé is, by many people's standard, the greatest rosé on earth. It's very hard to come by. I only get, 12 to maybe 24 bottles a year, and they sell out instantly. So to me, when I can find a rosé that is made very similar in style, a little less expensive, definitely more affordable, but it's also really beautiful to be able to show this. But yeah, she's coming from this little area called Bandol, and she makes really powerful red wines. She makes a really kind of fun white that I love as well. And then her version of a rosé, and the Railsbacks are kind of copying and giving tribute across the board. They're making reds, rosés, and whites, all in kind of like honor of how she has influenced them.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Well, what we'll do here is everybody's sort of finishing off this glass is I'll go ahead and jump into sort of my section here and talk a little about some pre-holiday prep education, and then we'll let Kevin jump back in and walk us through the next wine. And the idea is we're just going to do a quick kind of 3 to 5 minutes of kind of highlighting some things that we want to make you guys aware of as you guys start your planning for the holidays. And so for a lot of you guys on the call today know who I am. My name is Alan Bird. I run Blue Stout. For those who do not know, I'll give you just a very, very quick introduction. The Blue Stout is a CRO focused, so conversion rate optimization and revenue optimization focused firm. We focus specifically on working with brands that are on Shopify and primarily Shopify Plus. We were actually one of the first agencies asked by Shopify to join Shopify Plus when Plus was first launched. So we've been doing this for a very long time on the Plus platform. And what we do is we work very specifically with merchants, primarily 8-figure merchants, to help them scale their revenue through conversion and revenue optimization. And we do that through data-based A/B testing on their site. And then we back that up with an incredible team of brand first designers and Shopify Plus developers. So that's what we do. And what that does is it gives us a very unique position where we are running dozens of A/B tests on a monthly basis across multiple different verticals of brands. And so we get this level of insight and data that a lot of other people just don't have, because we're able to see what works and what doesn't work very well. And we're able to see what works and doesn't work very well in different periods of the year. And so what we're going to be talking about today is specifically the holidays. So what I want to do is highlight just 3 very quick things, actually 4 very quick things that we've seen that have worked for pretty much every brand we've ever worked with. And so what I mean by that is these are things that we have A/B tested across to many brands that have won. And when I say won, meaning they have either improved conversions or improved revenue per session on their store in 95% of cases. So the idea here is we want to give you guys some very quick wins, things that you guys should be thinking about implementing, or just frankly, just implementing, because these are very straightforward. As we start to go into the holidays, as you guys start to ramp up ad spend, as things start to get a lot more expensive when it comes to customer acquisition, you need to be doing absolutely everything you can to optimize that traffic that's coming to the store. And so these are a few very, very quick, very straightforward tactics that pretty much every brand should be considering as they start to head into the holidays. So we'll hit on these just very, very quickly. So first, let's talk about one of my favorites, and this is what we call this is custom promo banners per template. And if everybody's on the call today, we'll send all this over to you guys, a recording of this, so you guys have all access to this later on. Or if you guys at any point have any questions and want to reach out, don't hesitate. I'm happy to talk to any of you guys directly about any of the things we're talking about today. But when we say customer promo banners per template, what we mean is that most brands, right? Most of you guys on here probably are utilizing some sort of a notification banner at the top of your site that's informing customers around things like, free shipping, right? Or maybe it is actually, promoting different promotions that are going on at any given time. The issue is that most brands leave this static, meaning they're not changing it on a per page basis or a per template basis. When I say template, I mean homepage, product page, collections page, or landing page. Those are basic templates. So most brands have a very static, very simple message that is the same across all. What we have seen very specifically through testing is that messaging needs to be communicated differently, meaning you need different messaging on different templates and different pages, because that customer is in a very different position, a different part of their purchase funnel with you. And so the example we're sharing here would be the example of a store that has free shipping over $99. They've got that presented on every single template page, and you need to be changing that to something different based upon that template. So a good example of this is one of our apparel brands that we work with very specifically had this exact thing on their banner, free shipping over $99. We changed that to be more of a brand social validation message that was said, over 10,000 happy moms and babies. They specifically sell to children and parents. We changed that messaging on their homepage to that, and we kept the free shipping information on their product page. And for that brand alone, this improved conversion rates by 15%, which is crazy, for all cold traffic that was coming through the homepage. So for that very specific customer type or archetype, cold traffic coming through the whole page, it actually improved conversions 15% just by updating the messaging at the very beginning, top of the funnel. But this is something that making these updates to be very specific to the template has actually improved conversions in 95% of cases for all the brands that we've tested, which is dozens and dozens of brands. Second one, real quick, merchandising products on the homepage based on revenue per session. So this is something that if you're not doing, you need to be doing. I would actually suspect there's probably a large number of you guys on the call that are already looking at revenue per session on a page basis or a customer pathway basis. But what you need to be doing is making sure leading into the holidays, given the large amount of traffic that's going to be coming to your brand, you need to be merchandising the very front of your store, which is your homepage, based upon that revenue per session data. And what I mean by that is you need to be going in, we use Google Data Studio for all of our brands to do this, and identify very specifically for traffic that's coming in through an entrance point like your homepage, what are then those pages, whether the collections or product pages or landing pages or article pages, whatever they may be, that are producing the highest revenue on a per session basis. And so it's very easy to see if you understand how to manipulate a Google Data Studio and build the analytics, but it's very easy to see which of these produce more revenue. And you need to then be shifting what is presented on your homepage to match that. So it needs to be a very data-driven approach, but this is something that works 100% of the time. We've never seen this not work, is shifting the way you're merchandising your homepage based on revenue per session. We actually did this for another one of our home goods brands that operates in the home goods space. And what we determined through their data is that all traffic coming through the homepage on average, they were seeing a higher revenue per session for customers that went to collections and then went to product pages versus sending customers directly to product pages. So for them, the change we made was a very simple, easy change. And just by shifting the collections higher up, merchandising that higher up on the homepage, we saw an increase in average revenue per session across the entire store just by making that one shift and presenting collections first over products. That doesn't mean as a brand, you should make that same change. You might actually have the exact opposite, where customers actually perform better going to product pages first, but you wouldn't know that unless you actually ran the data. And so if you guys have any questions how to run that, I'm also happy to talk you guys through that. But that's a very simple change and one that every brand here should do before you start to ramp up traffic for the holidays. The third here would be persona-specific gift guide landing pages. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a large number of you that do this, but the takeaway here is that the more specific to the persona you can get, the better that this performs. And so what we've seen from A/B testing traffic specifically during the holidays for sending traffic into persona-specific landing pages versus your very category-specific landing pages. So what I mean by that would be an example of, like, let's say you sell apparel, let's say you sell athletic shorts as one of those collections or categories of products. You can send cold traffic or direct ad traffic into that collection. That is going to perform significantly worse than sending traffic that is targeted towards a certain persona into a certain persona specific landing page. So in this example, gifts for the active dad, right? Very specific target, very specific persona. In general, on average, we see this shift during the holidays specifically, resulting in about a 30% increase in performance. So it ends up being significant, especially during the holidays, when you've got a large demand around ads traffic, and the more niche you can get, more persona specific you can get, the better it's going to perform. So if you're not doing this, highly recommend also implementing this. And the very last one I'll suggest is a bit of a bonus here. So suggestion number 4, we don't always suggest running discounts during the holidays. It's very brand specific. It's something that we would never recommend just on a general basis saying, hey, you absolutely need to run discounts. This need to be thought through very specifically. But if you are a brand that is planning on running some sort of a discount or promotion during the holidays, we highly recommend testing tiered promotions. And this is something that is best implemented using scripts on Shopify Plus. So this is something that's very Shopify Plus specific. That's how we build it. That's how we see it work out to the absolute best. So for the Shopify Plus merchants on here, you should absolutely do this. If you're not, you should be, this is a great reason to be on Plus for the holidays. Is tier promotions allow you to, as opposed to just saying something like, we're offering a 10% discount on all products, or on this collection, right? It's offering an incentive to increase cart value by adding more, either buying multiple or buying a certain dollar amount. So the tier could be, buy 2, get 10% off, buy 3, get 20% off. It could be buy $100 worth, get 10% off, buy $200 worth, get 20% off. So you can have various different types of tier promotions. But the idea here is you're still providing the incentive with a discount, but that incentive is tied to a higher cart value, a higher AOV. So even though you're providing a discount, you're actually not reducing your total revenue per customer or total revenue per session. So the idea here is you can still offer that same promotion without the degradation in revenue. Highly recommend testing this, and we see this as a highly effective strategy for our brands that are planning on offering discounts. So those are just a couple of very, very quick hits of things that are very data-driven, things that every brand should be looking to do. If you guys have any questions on any of this, I'm more than happy to talk to any of you guys individually about how best to apply this to your brands. But that's the boring educational content, and we'll get back to the wine.
I personally love hearing all this stuff because frankly, I think everything in business is sales. I don't care if you're a lawyer, accountant, or selling product in retail, but I find it really fascinating, while we have been learning this side on our side of the business. I know a lot of what you're saying, Alan, is definitely has worked for us. And we are still learning very much how to make it happen, because technology is not always my best friend, but we try to make it easy. But yeah, so next wine, we'll keep it fun. We are definitely changing paces here. We are heading down to the southern side of Italy, and I want to make sure we're on the. I know I have 3 slides for this one. I'm not sure where we're at, but this crazy gentleman is Sabino Loffredo, and I really kind of applaud this wild man. I wish I could be this untech savvy. He still doesn't have a website. Like, this winery has not.
I know you're good.
It's crazy. And he doesn't have social media. He doesn't have a website, but his total production, and this is kind of a weird number, but his total production of wine is around 20 to 40,000 bottles total production between like 5 or 6 different labels. I think the average winery in California right now is over 1 million bottles produced annually, which is just wild to me. So, I mean, this guy's tiny. But one of the reasons he started getting all this press, where this is Sabino Loffredo, undoubtedly one of the most, capable, instinctive, and consistent white wine producers in Italy, from Gambrea Rosso, which is, like saying Forbes gave you a shout out in the business world. Gambrea Rosso is the real deal for rating. But for multiple years, Sabino has just gotten this wild amount of press for his white wines. And one of the reasons I think he really does this is if he's unhappy with the fruit at all, and this goes to show he is kind of an outlier. I don't think he's in this for the money. If the weather's not great, if it's too much sunlight, they get bad hailstorms or frost damage at certain points of the year, he will literally cut all of his fruit and drop it. He won't make any wine whatsoever. And I can't think about this as a farmer, because my business, every day I have sales coming through. Every day there's something going on, and I look at my annual budgets or monthly budgets, and it all adds up. He has, give or take, about 4 weeks out of the year to pick all of his for the entire harvest. That's where everything comes from. So when he decides like the fruit isn't of quality and he's just not going to make wine, he's not going to have income. It's wild to me to think about. But for years in the restaurant world, when I fell in love with kind of like Southern Italian wine, there's a map on one of these slides here that shows Italy as a whole. Yeah, so here we go. Well, I wish I was in the photo on the right. That would make me very happy right about now. But this is Southern Italy. And so where we are, if you're looking at this map, you see Campania on the far left. You have the Bay of Naples, which is this beautiful amphitheater area, the Amalfi Coast, all these crazy lemon trees, which is where this photo is coming from. So if we go right behind that, inland by about 7 to 20 miles, you come to this area called Benevento, and that's where this white wine is being made. And to me, I've had this massive fascination, a grape called Falanghina, for quite some time. You very rarely see it. I find it absolutely delicious, because to me, it just kind of tastes like summer in a glass. It's kind of like if you have like great lemonade with basil and some sort of like kind of like really vibrant herb that's really summer driven. The wine just has this like super refreshing quality. The other thing that I start finding here is, if I follow kind of the toe of Italy up through the central coast all the way up Italy, there's a very unique range of mountains that's all volcanic formed. And whenever you start planting grapes in volcanic soil structure, with a little bit of like kind of the classics of limestone, sand, and clay, these soils that really allow grapes to kind of thrive and grow really well, you get these really vibrant and bright and refreshing and kind of like higher acidity white wines. And to me, that acidity, that brightness is what makes me want to keep coming back to this white. I'm sure we all have had a glass of lemonade in our life where you take a sip of it and it's too sweet, and you get like halfway through the glass and you're like, I don't want to drink that anymore. It kind of gets into that realm. And what makes you want to have it is you add more and more lemon until it kind of balances stuff out. Same with like making salad dressing. But Pietracupa and Sabino's wines, this is his brand name is Pietracupa, the grape is Falanghina. To me, it's just this perfect, like almost everyday, easy drinking white. And where I started thinking of the food down here, this is like made for like linguine and clams. This is made for olive oil based pastas with lemon zest grated on top of it and breadcrumbs. It's done for this like really oil based kind of like citrusy and light and kind of refreshing seafood. And every year, whenever his wine's alive, I just fall in love with them. And he makes 3 different white grapes. What I would say is if you're in Naples and you're down kind of like hanging out on one of these terraces in the Amalfi, Falangina is like, it's the people's grape. It's what all the locals are drinking. This is what you pour into a jug. You get glass after glass of it in the afternoon. It's never crazy expensive. Pietracupa starts climbing in price points pretty drastically. But then he makes a grape called Fiano, and then he makes a grape called Greco. And these are the 3 grapes of Southern Italy that are worldly renowned for their quality. It's just really fascinating. Us in America, we know of Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay and all these grapes. But if I look at Italy as a whole, there's 12,000 grape varietals on the peninsula. And it's crazy to think about the diversity that goes on into wine culture, because it's just been there since the Roman times. There is so much information and so many grapes. I have a lot of young sommeliers in the city that are training, and as soon as they like start looking at all these grapes in Italy, they're like, no way am I ever going to learn this. So what we really tried kind of talking about is like the idea of you're drinking Southern Italian whites, you're drinking Northern Italian whites. Really kind of think of the place, because those characteristics of the ocean, the sunlight, just all these things that kind of contribute into what the wines are going to show. And to me, it's absolutely delicious. I really think the whites from this region of Benevento in Campania, around this, there's another village there called Avellino and Greco di Tufo. And I just think these wines are world class. And it's crazy to me because they're completely under discovered. No one talks about them. So do you guys like it? I hope so.
I think it's phenomenal. I don't think I've had this with you, Kevin. This is amazing.
I really, really love this wine. And, this also, like, I think a lot of people, during the pandemic, I think everyone has probably tried making a pizza at home, maybe in your oven on a stone or somewhat. If you ever are into like that crazy pizza mode, I think this with like a white pizza with like summer vegetables and grated lemon zest on it is like absolutely perfect. Or as I said, like linguine and clams, I think it's like absolutely perfect together. But it's just a super fun white wine. I love the lemon characters and the citrus that are coming through. A little bit of like some stone fruit, but I think it's just like absolutely delicious. And as I said, whenever you go into any of the little restaurants or trattorias down in the southern part of Italy, it is literally just like, this is the house white. It's Falangina. If you want something a little bit more serious, you go to the other white grapes. But Falangina is just meant for like drinking and enjoying with life and open some food and laugh with friends. And I think that's the whole purpose of it.
So how old are the vines that he's producing on?
So Italy in general kind of went through a crazy thing at the turn of the century where they had to rip up a lot of their rootstock. Down in the south, we're still finding some what I would consider old vines. I know Sabino has some of his vines that are about 120 to 140-year-old rootstock. But a lot of his Falangina going into this bottling, I would say, is about 25 to 30-year-old roots. But there are still some old parcels. At that turn of the century when they had to rip a lot of stuff up, some of the vineyards were just kind of completely forgotten about. People didn't trellis them. You'll see these wild photos of the winemakers down there, and their grapevines look like small trees. They'll literally be grown like pergola, so it won't look like Napa in these 4 rows. The grapes will be grown above your head. The fruit's like 7 feet high. It's a very, very daunting task to work those vineyard sites. But, I think when the people are willing to put the work in on the farming, those old vines, if you have them, are just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, this is cool. I really like this.
Yeah, and as I said, I mean, obviously, I'm based out of Ohio. However, if you have local retail shops or little, boutique wine shops, try to support. Look up Falangina. Go and ask what Southern Italian whites they have. I think it's like one of the most unique wine regions in the world, and you can really find some amazing values there if you're lucky enough to find any of the Pietracupa. Hopefully you all love it as much as I do. From the comments, it looks like many of you are, but it's super white wine.
And how long has he been producing? Is he old?
No, Sabino's probably only in his late 40s.
Yeah.
He's a workaholic. The man does not really stop doing anything. He's in kind of the weird, crazy countryside outside of Naples. But I think Sabino's in his late 40s, but he, as I said, he's not making a ton of wine. He does a little bit of consulting on some other wineries, but he just does a small production that he can manage by himself with a very small team. He does not really want to grow. I think it's really tricky in the wine world because it's agriculture. And I think if you start scaling agriculture, it's really hard to scale with your quality staying consistent or really, really high. I think some people can pull it off, but I do think there's something really beautiful when it's like great small restaurants, right? You go to a tiny restaurant, the chef is on point, he understands what he's doing with the food. The second he's not there, everything goes off a little bit, or if he opens up multiple locations. It's not saying it can't be done, but it does give some challenges. And I think Sabino really just wants to keep it small, hands-on, and kind of like focus doing what he can to the highest level possible, which I think is kind of beautiful.
Yeah, that's super cool. I find that, I think the story is awesome. I love these small producers. There's another slide too, I totally missed. Is this his?
This is yeah, so his property, this is Benevento. So this is kind of looking at the hills, and this is obviously the major volcano down south is Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius. This is not, this is, call it 20 to 30 miles further northeast. But, we are literally, while we're in this valley in this photo, you're give or take 15 miles from the Mediterranean. I mean, you can be in Naples and in the water in a 30-minute drive. And you have this crazy, because we're kind of in this weird valley, it's beautiful because that valley kind of protects the heavy winds coming off the water. So it creates this kind of little microclimate within these valleys. But they have all these crazy ridge lines that are all formed by the volcanic activity, which is, I think a fair amount of people on this call are up in Pacific Northwest. You have Mount Hood, Mount Jefferson. These are all, kind of like old volcanic activity is how all those mountains were formed. And what they do to the coastline and to the terrain is just, I think, absolutely breathtaking. And every time I see these photos, it's just beautiful. And right now, they're actually harvesting their grapes. Italy went into harvest about 3 days ago. So this photo was probably taken maybe in about 2 weeks after grapes come off. So this is, Italy's going to look like this in about 2 more weeks.
I'm with Wyatt buying a flight right now. Which is transition, Wyatt. We'll let you take over. Let me give you screen share access, man, and I'll let you chat here. I might have to move my computer there. Here we go. All right, Wyatt, I'll let you jump in, man.
Right. Thanks, Alan. I have you gotta let me share.
I'd have to give you, okay, hold on.
Give me the permission. Yeah, I've never been more disappointed to live in Utah after everything Kevin has told us about these first 2 wines. I don't have them because they cannot be shipped to me.
I know. You were one of the unfortunates.
one of the unlucky ones for sure. Okay, cool. We got this teed up. So yeah, no, appreciate that. So my name is Wyatt. I am with Recharge. I see some familiar names and faces on the call. So thanks so much to you guys for joining. For those of you who maybe are unfamiliar with Recharge, we are the leading subscription management platform, help e-commerce brands of all sizes like launch and scale, recurring revenue and subscription programs, covers subscribe and save, subscription boxes, bundling, build a box, membership programs, etc. So, talking about a few things today with the upcoming holiday season. Going to be a lot of people visiting everyone's sites for the first time, and so we really want to focus on making it super easy and accessible for those people visiting sites to convert. And if it's part of your strategy already, convert into a subscriber, so you see the corresponding uplift in LTV and revenue that's associated with subscribers versus one-time purchasers. So I'm going to highlight kind of 3 optimizations that help do just that by increasing that revenue per user. So for those of you that have a subscription offering or program already, these will be great tips. And for those who don't currently have one, or maybe have been considering launching something along those lines, these double as kind of key foundational strategies that we see our most successful merchants roll out when they launch that program. So kind of the 3 key optimizations that we really look to are the 3 that you see here, right? So ensuring that a subscription program is highlighted on the website and is offered on there, providing easily accessible information on your subscription offering on the site, and then the ability to convert a one-time purchaser to a subscriber when they're in the cart or checking out. So I'll kind of show a few examples of what that looks like for our merchants. So Super Coffee, we can see here their homepage. They kind of have a little widget here to go directly to that landing page. But if we scroll down and see, they highlight the offering. It's front and center. Subscribe, sip, and save. We can either go directly to buying a product or kind of dive into that. And this is where we're going to highlight, everything about this offering. So the benefits of it, why you would want to subscribe, what those perks might be, any frequently asked questions that people might have, like around a subscription offering, kind of eliminate as much barrier to entry as possible and just give people all the information they need up front. And then most importantly, directly from this page that has all this information, you're getting people excited, being able to then jump directly into capturing that momentum and purchasing a product. So directly straight to shopping now. So for the second one I mentioned, really being able to highlight easily accessible information on the subscription offering and on the product detail page. That's it. These fruit bars, they do a fantastic job of that. So some of the key things that we see here, they have subscribe and save set as the default offering. That helps drive adoption. Really kind of customized and stylized subscription widget here that, again, reinforces all of the benefits and information around why someone would want to subscribe and enter into an ongoing relationship with this particular brand. So, kind of key things here, you can highlight here, see more perks, and then they link directly to their dedicated kind of subscription information page as well. And then kind of the last kind of main tip that, or main strategy that we recommend would be those in-cart upsells from one-time purchases to subscription. So Hydrant, again, practicing best practices in a variety of ways, the subscribe and save, kind of landing page and detail page. Subscription set as default, but if we were to just buy it once, add it to the cart, we are immediately prompted to upgrade to a subscription, for an additional savings. And then they also do a great job of cross-selling, with similar or like-minded products in here. So both of these strategies helping to boost AOV, helping to boost LTV, and all of this is going to be backed up by data that we've been able to source through our over 15,000 merchants that we work with. So I found kind of the two big things. Really, on average, merchants of ours see up to a 4% revenue increase for every 1% increase in subscription adoption on the first checkout. And that increase is due to the corresponding increase in LTV that's achieved through subscription adoption. The second big thing is that merchants that have some type of recurring revenue program or subscription program on average are going to more than double the overall LTV of their customers. Some verticals are going to see 3, 4, even 6x the LTV when it's compared to one-time purchasers. That's kind of what you see on the graph here on the right with the 5 main verticals that we play in. So these optimizations that I just shared, really powerful drivers if you're looking to grow LTV, looking to grow customer retention. I think that's been a big theme this year. Obviously, customer acquisition cost incredibly high. The whole era of zero-party data now just becoming increasingly harder to find customers. So when we do convert them, drive them into these programs, we want to make sure we are getting the most out of them, growing a relationship with them, and really making sure that we're able to hit on those conversions. So that's what I got for you guys. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, and I'll back you up on that one, on the metrics of optimizing sort of first-time purchase into conversion and the result on revenue. We've done a lot of A/B testing with clients over the last year, specifically focusing on driving kind of first-time traffic, cold traffic into subscription versus one-off purchase, specifically for that reason. And there are use cases that kind of go either way, but overwhelmingly we see the benefit in driving subscription off of first purchase versus a one-off buy, off of transitioning somebody to a subscription off first purchase versus a one-off purchase. We see a lot of brands that tend to be a little off-putted by that idea of sort of opting consumers into subscription first, but the data shows that it does actually produce higher revenue, and it doesn't necessarily increase churn. So.
Yeah. And I think it just kind of goes back to this too, right? Like positive experience equals confidence and clarity equals trust. It's like if you give people all the information kind of upfront to help alleviate some of that, you're far more likely to help on that kind of, adoption upon first checkout versus like not giving any information, just kind of having this out of the box widget set to, subscribe and save or a subscription.
Yep.
And that's what those kind of 3 brands do really well that we highlighted. They
Yep.
really kind of help improve the confidence and trust of someone who might be visiting for the first time.
Yeah. And also thinking through cadence, right? And so like lots of times churn is not necessarily a factor of like just subscription, but it's a factor of subscription cadence. So it's like, okay, you got a customer to opt in subscription, but maybe they're churning because you're sending it too frequently, right? And so really we need to focus on a UX experience that's allowing them to opt into the right cadence versus just saying, oh wait, they should have been a one-off buy versus a subscription buy. So again, not to go off on a tangent, but all things that everybody here should be thinking about, especially if you already have a subscription offer. All right, cool. Back to the wine. All right. So Kevin, is this the right slide and you want to go to next here?
Yes, this will work for sure.
Cool.
It's so fascinating. The more I've studied wine around the world, like just looking at terroir and kind of like what happens, it's really wild to me. So the hills in this photo that I am seeing, this is outside of Barcelona. So we are southern Spain, kind of a really unique area, but it's wildly hilly. And the vineyard sites are crazy rocky. A lot of these vineyards were originally planted by the Romans when they were kind of like heading around the south of the Mediterranean through France and into Spain and all the way down to, to southern Portugal. It's kind of crazy how far their influence went when the Romans were really starting to plant. But it's funny, the winemakers here, they always make jokes now because these hills and the way the roads are, they're like, there is no such thing as going from point A to point B when traveling through Priorat. You kind of like have to go to like Q and X to get anywhere. They do not think there's a straight line anywhere in Priorat. It's just wild to drive around. So it was really crazy when a lot of these vineyards back in the 70s were mostly abandoned. A few winemakers that really kind of had their heart and soul into the region. One I mentioned here is René Barbier. He kind of came in and started looking at the old vines that were completely forgotten about, these vineyards that were completely overgrown, and started replanting things. And when he did this, he found a few friends. He started this crazy little gang, 4 of them, and they all started what they consider a clos. So there's Clos Figueros, which is what we're drinking, Clos Mogador, and it was these like kind of unique sides that everyone kind of championed and moved forward. And it's wild because now Priorat, the region that we're drinking from, has now turned into one of the most 2 to 3 famous wine regions in all of Spain. And it's wild to me because going back far enough, we didn't really have wine culture here for almost 100 years. No one was making it because it was too hard to farm. So if you hit the next slide, I think the next one shows where we are. Yeah, up and to the far right where you see red in the Catalonia area, you'll see a very little kind of like, it looks like a smaller circle kind of going into itself. The very center of that is Priorat. And people will talk when you're on the top of the hills on a clear day, standing in these vineyard sites, you can actually see North Africa across the Mediterranean. So you kind of understand how high these hills are. But this is Grenache country. So the famous grape that grows in the south of Spain, and also when you head into the south of France, is a grape called Grenache. You'll see some other grapes of like where we had the Rosé earlier, Mourvedre, Cinsault, a lot of these other things, but it's really unique to me that these wines have such potential. So when you're this far south, it does get hot. So grapes get really ripe. Alcohol can really become high. The wines can become very powerful. So this producer, I'll go to next slide, was a gentleman. He's actually a Brit. This is Christopher Cannon and his daughter, Anne. Christopher is actually originally British, lived in Bordeaux for a long time, built one of the largest wine exporters the world has ever seen. And he ended up wanting to sell to raise his family. He went over to Priorat with one of his buddies who had the vineyard next door, and he instantly fell in love with the place, ended up signing the paperwork that day, drove back to Bordeaux, put his family in a minivan, drove to Priorat and started rehabbing these old vineyards. So this is fairly old vine Grenache, a little bit of young vine as well. He's also blending in kind of the classic grapes of the area because Syrah does really well down here. So Grenache to me creates like this richness and this texture. Syrah gives black pepper and cherries. And then we move into kind of Carignan and some of these other local indigenous grapes that give some aromatics and kind of like some spicy tones of like cayenne pepper and red pepper flake and a little bit of kind of like this red fruit. But I think the wine just on a drinkability side, I love it because it's incredibly juicy. It's soft and has some tannins without becoming too big where you can't kind of enjoy it without having a big steak in front of you. So this is a really unique little wine from the south of Spain. I mean, it's unique because to me, these are really, really delicious wines to have with, grilled peppers. It does great with lamb, olives again, but it can actually handle a lot of like high heat. And so put this over charcoal, put it over any sort of grill, get some marks on it, get some smoke into it. And I think the wines are really, really kind of fun and fascinating. And I also think it's drinking really well without food right now. I think it's pretty just kind of like juicy and still like round and big without becoming too powerful.
I think it's really nice. I think it's really nice. Is it, so what kind of food pairing would match with this? Like, is this a very like Catalan style?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, to me, like this is where you see a lot of peppers growing. So go get some big bell peppers, put them over a grill, let them kind of char, break down, slice them up, toss them in some olive oil, some heavy spices, marinate some olives. I definitely think Grenache and Priorat is definitely made for lamb. So if you're doing a lamb burger, I think you're going to be pretty delicious. A lamb chops, if you're trying to go seafood, I think this wine can hold up with salmon. But to me, it's kind of like going into more of the prep with peppers and kind of like that kind of like almost Spanish flair, Catalonia, as you said. I think it's kind of a fun red wine, and we have a lot of people that are very obsessed with this bottle. And so, and with Christopher's background into exports and world wine selling for the last 50 years, he definitely built the winery to, I wouldn't say he's a big winery, but he knows what he's doing to make it actually efficient and make sense. And his daughter is now turning into kind of the heir apparent, taking it all over. And she's a wine rep in Barcelona. And every time I need a restaurant recommendation in Barcelona or a reservation I cannot get a hold of, I just call Anne, and she pretty much can open any door possible for me in Spain. So it's a nice little connection to have.
Yeah, this is very unique. This is cool.
Yeah, and again, it's like kind of that time of the year where right now we're seeing like zucchini and squash coming out of farmers markets. So get that with any of the peppers that are coming off, even if you're drying them, slice them up, olive oil, throw them on a grill, get a nice char behind it. It really does well with like end of the summer produce.
I was about to say, it feels
really
like a good transition wine.
Absolutely.
Transition summer,
absolutely.
fall. Yeah, I like that. That's very cool. That's very
cool.
Yeah,
this is his old cellar he was rebuilding on the left here. His wines all do barrel. This one sees all neutral, so it's not meant to take on any flavors of the wood. But when they took this old building over, most of it was falling down. They had to transfer barrels off of semi trucks when they were delivering build winery and put them into smaller vehicles and drive them up because the road wouldn't take up a massive 40-foot trail. And this was the old cellars that were still there from over 100 years ago that they slowly started rehabbing and bringing back to life.
That's very cool. And how, I missed it, how old did you say this is, the vineyard is?
The vineyards go back, there's datings thousands of years back. I have sun blinding me through this window right now. But the vineyards go back thousands of years. His current vineyard sites, again, most of Europe around the turn of the century, there was this massive kind of disease called phylloxera, and many vineyards throughout Europe had to rip up their vineyard sites. The economics of what happened throughout Europe at the turn of the century, it's wild what it did to what their GPD, it changed everything for Spain, France and Italy, because most of the economics coming in was agricultural, and wine was such a major part of that when this disease happened, it just wiped everyone out. So we're seeing a lot of young vine. I think he has some 60-year-old rootstock going into this bottling, but I think of a lot of the vines into Serres de Priorat, the Ladybug label. I think this is mostly his younger vines, call it like 15 to 20 years. And once they get older, they go into his like top tier wines, which sell for a small fortune right now.
No, it's very cool. It's very unique. You guys, anybody else here enjoying it? I think, am I the only one? I think it's very cool.
I'm loving it.
Yeah, I think it's great.
But I am sorry if you're in Utah or Canada.
Mm-hmm. Wyatt's just like drooling. I can see him in the camera.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest challenges for my business is compliance law. every state has different laws for how we can ship, and it makes it really complicated for trying to grow wine sales nationwide, because every state is different sales tax, and the alcohol, it's not an easy side of the business at all, but I love what I do.
And we'll let Michael jump in here and talk, but right before we do, just so, because I don't know if we have a slide that actually shows your story or your URL at all, Kevin, but for anybody who's on here who's interested in liked any of the wines, right, that we had today, like this is where to go. This is Kevin's site, and they do a phenomenal job of curating. So if you enjoyed today, make sure you check this out.
And you're right, I haven't changed my banner at the top in 2 years, so
look the same. Probably a good thing. Cool. So did anybody have any questions about this wine for Kevin? And before we hand it off to Michael to kind of talk through our last education piece? Looks like we're good to go. I think everybody's just drinking.
that's a good thing.
That's a good thing. I know. I sent my wife a photo of the wines that we're trying today, Kevin, and she's like, "You better bring those home." So she wants them too. All right, cool. Well, Michael, we'll hand it off to you, and we can kind of walk through the last education piece for everybody.
Amazing.
All right. So we'll dive in here and just tell me when you want to transition to the next slide.
Perfect. Sounds good. Hey everyone, thanks Kevin for this session too. This is pretty amazing. I mean, like I'm up here in Canada. I think Natasha is up here in Canada as well. We're the only Canadians, I think, maybe in the call.
So I said this. I messaged someone privately. I actually have Canadian citizenship, so I have a lot of family in Ontario.
Do you really?
So you're familiar with those Niagara wines, some of the best in the world, right? I think
there actually are some very good ones up there.
Yeah, that was the joke about the notes, unfortunately, which was, I only have a red wine up here, so it's all gonna taste the same. But yeah, I'm all of these sound amazing, so I'm gonna see if I can find them.
Perfect. Yeah, so thanks, Kevin, and thanks for Blue Stout for hosting this. Thanks for Shopify and Recharge for joining the squad and making this reality. And for those in the room that are gorgeous customers, thanks for joining as well. I know there are many of you as well here, so thanks for coming. So I wanted to keep this high level, but also sort of drill in. I know, like, when we join these events, sometimes, like, some of the best webinars that I've been to are ones that have, like, similar to what Wyatt presented, like some really key takeaways, and even what Alan presented, like very sort of tactical takeaways. And I'm going to try to do the same here. There's actually, I'm drawing a lot of these tips from a playbook that we just released, actually, and it was published by our CEO, our CTO, and our chief of staff. And they interviewed over 10,000, well, they relied on the data from over 10,000 of our merchants and interviewed, I believe there was 45 merchants. Collected all this data, and this is in an effort really to understand how can merchants transform what is typically viewed as a cost center into a profit center. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about customer support. This is, like, historically, at least in my experience, I was a merchant for 6 years, actually, before joining Gorgias. We were acquired in December of 2020. Shortly before that, we actually became Gorgias customers. And one of the things that really sort of, like, struck us, and in fact actually made me want to join the team 6 months later, was that it was only when we transitioned over to Gorgias that we began to view customer support as a profit center. It was no longer this, like, headache sort of cost center afterthought. We were actually, like, driving meaningful revenue through support. So this playbook that we released, you'll see, actually, and I'll share it in the chat after, it's 43% lift in, we see 43% lift, it's 44% lift, excuse me, in revenue by making your customers happier, okay? And what I'm going to share in this presentation is how to get, like, the first 15%, okay? So it's like three tips, like, that you can execute right away to get that first 15. And again, this is based on 25 interviews and research from over 10,000 of our own merchants. These are like our top performing merchants, okay? So like, you don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel. These sort of like, these tips, these actions that you can take right away are really simple to execute on and have been, the road is already paved for you to succeed. If you'd like to get like the remaining 30%, I'm going to share with you guys that playbook. It's totally free. It's not gated. I just want you guys to like do your best this holiday season and prepare. That's what the entire agenda is here today. And grateful, of course, for Blue Stout for like sort of championing this. Okay, so let's start off by incentivizing your support team to generate revenue for an additional 1% lift. Okay, 1% may seem insignificant, but if you consider the amount of effort that's actually required to get just a 1% lift, it's like, it's not a lot. All it takes actually is simply incentivizing your support team to take that extra step and to measure appropriately. So you need to be able to view, if you have a customer support team and one that's sort of, these are like your front line. These are the folks that are actually talking to your customers all of the time. They're the ones that are actually best equipped indeed to actually to convert those customers, those browsers into buyers. So how do we do this? There's actually a number of our merchants have actually been very successful in doing this. And that's to actually simply incentivize your support team. Jackson is a merchant of ours, JAXXON. They actually reward their top performers on the support team with gift cards at the end of each month. So you can see this actually in the Gorgias reporting dashboard. You can view who of your support team members are actually the highest performing that month and simply reward them. This takes like sort of a support team that's passive and just sort of like taking those support tickets and trying to get through the day and transforming them into like an extension of your sales team. Like think of your customer support as an extension of your sales team. Like take that what would otherwise be an in-store experience with like a merchandiser or a salesperson on the floor and bring it online. So that's the first tip. And then I think we can move to the second there. Replace lost packages. This is actually a big one. And do it for free because the math works out in the end, I promise you. So it may seem upfront like a steep expense, and upfront it actually will be, but the revenue that you actually retain from those repeat purchases from those happy, loyal customers is actually well worth the cost. And I'm going to go through the math so you guys can see it from our side as well. So how do you implement the tip? Well, it's pretty straightforward. So each time a customer reaches out to you for a lost package, you can also use third-party tools to make this even easier. But if you aren't using like a loop returns, for example, you can do this without it. I do recommend loop returns. They actually have a great integration with Gorgias as well. But if you don't, you can ask the customer just to quickly fill out the form with their name, their item, and the amount spent, nothing else. Then you just simply set up a flow to resend those packages to those customers. And the math, as I said, works out. If you assume that you have, let's call it a 30% gross margin, you're essentially spending the cost of goods sold amount for this customer to come back and you'll see those returns in that LTV. So if you assume there's about a 40% chance that the customer will come back, you're actually paying the cost of goods sold amount back for a future profit of 70%. So it's roughly net neutral for your business. And of course, it creates like a positive customer experience. This is at the name of the game in 2022 is just like LTV retention. Alan, you see this as well. Name of the game is retention, driving LTV. You heard it from Recharge as well. We're entering into like a very tough Q4 for a lot of merchants. It's going to be making sure that when we acquire a customer, we retain them because it's never been more expensive too.
Okay, I can back that loop returns recommendation. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they're rock solid. One of our top partners for sure too. And then this is the big one. This is if there's any takeaway, this is the one. And this is actually just like some inside baseball for all of you folks that are actually Gorgias customers And for those of you that actually that aren't, our product roadmap is, I guess it's not really inside baseball because our product roadmap is actually completely transparent. You can find it on our website, but just so everyone knows here, we have like an entire squad, a product and engineering squad now dedicated to what we're this sort of like new initiative. And this is, as I said, transforming the cost center to a profit center. Now we're putting our money where our mouth is and really going hard and in investing for you guys to make sure that you can transform that cost center into a profit center. But this is really where it starts, okay? Proactively chat shoppers with your best-selling products in their carts to reduce that cart abandonment for an estimated revenue lift of 13%. That's very significant, okay? And that's like, how do you actually do it? It's through proactive chat. You can actually, in Gorgias, we do this quite well. It's through, and I'm not sure for those of you in the audience that are using Gorgias, you may be familiar with the proactive chat already. You can build out chat campaigns, identify when that customer is on a particular page or when they have a particular product in their cart. And if you then put a support team member in front of that shopper when they're making that consideration, when they have the item in their cart, and you can like upsell them, cross-sell them, coach them, give them the information that they need, reduce those objections or try to limit those objections and help them, give them the information that they need to actually make that purchase. This is going to be really important, of course, in Q4, because when we actually land a prospect on the store and they're considering a purchase, this has been very expensive to even get them to this stage of the funnel. Like, incentivize your team, make sure that they're in front of the customer in those really key buying moments. And we've seen it in the data. You can actually reduce that cart abandonment for an estimated revenue lift of 13%. Okay, I've talked enough. I'm going to send it back over to Alan, but I'm going to drop the playbook into the chat here so that, the 15% that I've talked about here, there's another 30% to gain through this playbook. So you'll find in the chat. Thanks, Alan.
Yeah, and I backed the playbook too. The playbook's very good, and it's basically just a very long blog post of tactical tips just like this. We work with Gorgias exclusively with our clients when we can because of all these reasons. So I highly recommend checking it out. That's really it for me. The idea here was to keep this super casual. Hopefully, this is a good mix of both a little bit of fun on the wine side as well as some very tactical educational stuff to help you guys prepare for the holidays. That was the goal. And that's kind of it, unless there's any other kind of closing remarks from the rest of the team, whether it's Wyatt from Recharge or anybody else. I think we're all good to go. And I'll plug Kevin and Hart and crew one more time because I love these guys and they do a phenomenal job and I love their wines. And if you guys enjoyed anything that you had today, make sure you hit him up because this was all him. He made the selections, made the recommendations, and this is all coming from his hard work. So Kevin, thank you very much for your time today.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure. It's great hearing from everyone on the call. I also am learning something here too, and it's great.
I saw you jotting down notes.
I absolutely did. So it's fascinating. I mean, there's always something to learn, and frankly, the thing I have in my experience thus far with ecom and Shopify is you always just kind of keep learning. You learn something new, you listen to people that know more than you and ask good questions and, kind of enjoy the process. And it's step by step, everything just gets better. And we've been learning for 3 years and I don't plan on changing anything besides just do new things every year. So
that's how it works. And same thing with us. This was a total experiment as an event. Wanted to try something remote, but also try to make it not your sort of typical, just like boring webinar. So hopefully we hit the nail on the head. If not, let me know. We'll make some adjustments next time.
Maybe we can take a quick poll, Alan, and just be like, how was this event? Maybe candidly, what did you guys think? So if we,
I would love candid feedback. And maybe like if anybody thought it wasn't good, tell me.
5 out of 5, Alan. That's good. It's a 5 out of 5. Wow, Anna.
You got a 5 out of 5. Good. We'll take a 5 out of 5. That's a win. Yeah, I think it's good. I think we kept everybody. We kept most of everybody to the end, which is pretty good for Pacific Coast. 3:00 in the afternoon on Wednesday. Keep everybody around for an hour and 15 minutes. So I think it was a win. So I think we'll have to look to do something like this again.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Alan, and
Cool.
thanks to all the other folks.
Yeah,
on the call as well.
thanks everybody for all the hard work. Kevin, thanks for shipping the wine out. I think this was great. And everybody that was on the event, we'll be following up with you guys this week with recording. So if you guys have anybody else on the team that wants to tune in to any of the tactics that were mentioned, or actually listen to the wine event also, we'll be sending all this out. So let's see here. I think we're all done with the slide deck here. I think basically all we had was a sort of contact. So if you wanted to contact any of us just directly, all of our direct emails are here from both Gorgias, Recharge, Blue Stout, as well as Emma from Shopify, who joined us today. So if you guys have any questions, seriously, don't hesitate to reach out. If you guys had any questions about any of this, Blue Stout is a partner for all the tech providers here, so we can help answer any questions too. And we're more than happy to. The idea here was wanting to keep this very intimate, very small group. And so literally don't hesitate to reach out if you guys have any questions about anything we talked about today. But I think we'll close it there. We'll let everybody get on with their day. And for those on Pacific Coast time, you guys can go back and work with a little bit of wine buzz, and everybody on East Coast time, you guys can call today. So we'll talk to you guys later.